Welcome to this week's Swarf and Chips. We're here at Brown and Holmes and we'll be talking to Kevin Ward, the director, later on in the show. So coming up in today's show, we're going to be talking F1 gears at Nevo Developments, talking apprentices at Grainger and Worrell, and we'll be seeing an 11-axis Muratech machine working and why investing in this machine isn't just about keeping those spindles turning and reducing the risk of scrap parts. And last but by no means least, we'll be talking power skiving, really in depth at NCMT. So welcome to today's Swarf and Chips here at Brown and Holmes. How good is it to be on site in an engineering workshop?
It's brilliant, isn't it? And often we've got maybe machines behind us, but today it's very much about fitting. You can see the guys, we've got extras in the background, obviously, putting these fixtures together, which really is what Brown and Holmes is about, isn't it?
I mean, some of their fixtures, one example behind you, Lindsay, are just fantastic. They're pieces of art, in my opinion. I mean, the work that goes into them is phenomenal. I mean, they do a lot of the bespoke fixtures, but they do the standard products as well, and they've got their own workshop manufacturing facility, and they're part of MTD network, and they're apparently doing really well from it.
Yeah. Also, one of the guys showed me earlier, inside the fixtures and all the hydraulics and the pipe work is just phenomenal.
The skill that goes into what they're developing here really does show off UK manufacturing, which again we'll probably talk more about in the show.
Okay, we'll see Kevin later on in the show, but first up, let's head over to Nevo Developments and talk gears F1.
For this week's educational feature, we have travelled to Motorsport Alley, to Nevo Developments Limited, to discover how they manufacture extremely specialised gears for the Formula One cars, for the actual steering column, and how they affect the Formula One car. Now, they're manufactured on these Matsuura machines, and I want to catch up with John Harris, who's the founder of this company. Now, John, thanks for inviting us here today. Now, the gears that you manufacture for the Formula One car, for the steering columns, they are extremely specialised, and it's a very niche market. But how do they actually affect the performance of the Formula One car?
Yeah, they allow the designer to tune the actual sensitivity of the car at high speed.
So what does that mean, in simple terms? Can you explain?
Sure, it just allows the designer to achieve a compromise in the steering.
So when you talk about the manufacture of the gear, is it the actual form of the gear that's the critical part?
Yes, absolutely. And this is the thing that has to be better than 5 microns.
So the F1 gears, they've got to be really accurate, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, my point on this is actually what he's manufacturing is just to such the nth degree of quality that it boasts so good for UK manufacturing, doesn't it? I mean, it's a shame we couldn't actually see the components, but there was obviously an NDA in place on that. But hopefully from listening and hearing what we've got to say today, you'll see that what he is doing is really beyond the realms of what most can achieve.
Yeah.
I mean, to give an example, Lindsay, he was using bullnose cutters down to 0.4 in diameter, and the tolerances were less than 5 microns, and 0.2 are a surface finish, and that's with small cutters of that kind. It's just phenomenal, and I've never seen gears like that ever, and just phenomenal.
It was also the machines that he was using from Matsuura are quite different to what we normally see installed by Matsuura, machines that I hadn't seen in the field, but dedicated to high tolerance and precision components. To me, it was a little bit like there must be some clever algorithm listening to what the actual solution does on the steering mechanism. It's a bit like when you're driving in a car. If you put someone heavy in the car, it obviously changes the. What are you laughing at? Do you think there's a gag
we
coming?
just know what you're going to do. It's going to be Joe. It's going to be a Joe
okay,
joke.
Well, you said it. So imagine if a car was driving at 100 mile an hour, then you put Joe in it, it would obviously strain the engine, so it would go down to sort of 70. But you need to speed it up.
Right.
Did you know he got thrown out of Weight Watchers the other day?
No, stop it.
He did. He was tampering with the scales. Or something. He left with huge grace though, because she was doing the same.
You're a nightmare.
Carry on.
Right, later on in the show we'll be speaking to Kevin, but next up, let's feel inspired by meeting some apprentices at Grainger and Worrell.
This week we have a special educational feature from the home of Grainger and Worrell, and I'm joined by Mark. Now, Mark, you invest in all the latest technology here. You are at the forefront of technology, but how important are people? How important are apprentices?
Incredibly important. It's easy to go and buy machines as long as you can get the finance, but it's the people that actually drive them. It's the engineers of the future that are going to program them, design the tools, actually make those machines sing and dance.
And how many apprentices do you employ here? I mean, I've seen so many apprentices already today in the CMM rooms. You know, how does your apprentice scheme work, if you like?
Okay, so we've got a very close partnership with MCMT, Marches Training Centre, which is right next door to us. So as a group, we've got several dozen apprentices in there in that scheme at the moment, some on bespoke courses, some on more general engineering courses, supporting the business as a whole.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. For the students that are watching this show that are not sure what career to go into, what would be your advice to them, and why should they look at engineering as a possible option?
Engineering and specifically manufacturing is a fantastic career. It has been for many, many years. It's not that dark and dingy career of 50 years ago where, you know, you're working in oil and dust and grease and all those sorts of things. It's a fantastic environment. Modern manufacturing, it's just a great career.
So a great example of an automotive company in the UK, right next to the Marches, perfect location.
It couldn't be placed better, could it? I mean, I was looking at some statistics on apprentices, and for people that are, you should be encouraged to get into this industry because, you know, engineering now is about high precision machine tools. It's about making quality parts for aerospace, you know, the industry, Formula One, all of that. It's an exciting place to be. And I mean, salaries do start between 12 and 15,000 pounds, so it's good to get into at a young age. And also, I was actually reading that between 2016 and 2017, there were over 491,000 apprenticeships started in the UK, obviously in various
different
sectors,
areas. Yes,
it just shows that as a country we are trying to get the youth, you know, into apprenticeship schemes, which I did one, and I'm assuming you did too.
Yeah, I did one as well, and it stood me in good stead, I'd like to think. But what I loved, a quote that Mark Davis made in that interview is that, you know, it's easy to buy a machine, but it's not easy to get good people, and they are the people that make the machines sing and dance, he said. And great industry, great company. You'd think that they wouldn't have any trouble kind of attracting the best young talent, but the best young they want the best young talent, and they will get the best young talent.
Yeah. So next up is the Muratech 11-axis machine that we're going to see over at MEP Engineering.
Today I'm at MEP in Kent. Now there are plenty of videos on the MTD CNC YouTube channel that we have taken or done here since we've been here on site. But today's exercise is to talk to Phil about productivity and how much of an improvement this Muratech machine has made since it's been here or installed by Matsuura. Phil, this is an 11-axis turning centre. Now, can you just talk us briefly through how much of an impact this has made, based on the fact that you used to have to do milling on some machines, turning on others, and what the pitfalls were?
Sure. So, absolutely, we chose this machine because we can do multiple milling and turning operations within the one machine. We used to have products that we would put through 3 or 4 different machines, 4 or 5 different operations, that we could only ever do one at a time. With this machine, we can load the material in one end, the robot unloader unloads it when it's finished, and it reduces that time to be able to deliver product to our customers by weeks and weeks and weeks.
Going back to the way you used to do it, there must have been a lot of risk involved in maybe getting, let's say you had 100 off, getting to the 60th and finding that part number 60, number 67 and number 74 were all scrap. Sure.
Yeah, so yeah, there are risks involved in batch production. Traditionally you do op 10, you do op 20, you do op 30, and then at op 40 you could scrap them. Because we're doing all of those operations in one go, we know from the first part that they're good, and then monitoring it the right way, and it's got in-machine probing if it's appropriate for that product, we can make sure that that risk is taken out.
So I would then question when some engineers say to us, well, for me to get a return on investment on a machine like this, I need to be running 24/7. You wouldn't necessarily agree with that, would you?
No, obviously the more you can run the machine, the more it will return on your investment. But we chose this type of machine to cut down the risk within the manufacturing cycle, the handling, the time, the waiting time. And we found that it's been able to give us that return on investment because we've been able to make stuff more efficiently. So yeah, we don't try and run it 24/7.
An 11-axis machine. I mean, we don't see many machines like this on in the industry.
No, and I think there is a similar installation just down the road from Phil. Whether that was an influence in his purchase, I'm not sure. But it is a real high precision performance machine. And I think for me, one of the points from this video, I know Gio's probably going to mention the hard turning element and the precision element, but it is the fact that he'd got Matsuura machines. He was confident in what they supplied and the support that they were going to give. Phil himself only started that company in 2002. And in fact, if you'd have gone there pre his time, it was just like a tool making business. There was no real CNC machines there. So he's obviously, changed the business a lot. He works in the defence industry, like a lot do in that area.
I mean, I really like the automation, Paul. I mean, it didn't get touched on in that video, but you've seen that there was a bar feeder, so you could feed bar, but you've also got the gantry running over the top, so you could load billets and have, use it both ways. It's very flexible, but yet, as well, from an accuracy perspective, very, very accurate. Hard parts, not a problem. It's a very precise machine. And you made a really good point, Paul, about the volumes.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's not all about volumes with this machine. It is about solving problems.
Well, that's what when you said about investing to reduce the risk of scrap parts, and it's not just about keeping the spindles turning all the time.
And you imagine being an apprentice and getting to grips with a machine like that. Ooh. I mean, in my days, it was all about being sent to the stores for a long wait or stripy paint or something like that. But now it's maybe not the same because maybe they don't have stores. Did you ever get asked that?
No.
I didn't get asked for that, but they used to put that blue maker's ink or tool maker's ink on my glasses.
What, like the old binocular tricks?
Yeah, I had all
the
that.
old panda eyes.
Yeah, I got my own back on the apprentices once we used to start getting apprentices in. Once my apprentice was never on his machine ever, so we went out into the garden, got some weeds, put them onto his machine bed. So when he returned back to his machine, he was like, "What's gone on?" He says, "You've been gone that long. Weeds have started to grow."
Oh, brilliant!
That engineer's blue. They used to put that on the toilet seats as well, didn't they?
I got away with that.
You do worry me, you do. Right, brilliant. Okay, in just a few moments, we'll be speaking to Kevin Ward, the director of Brown & Holmes. But next up, let's speak to Richard from NCMT and talk power skiving.
For this week's educational feature, I've visited my friend Richard Turner at NCMT in Coventry. Now, the educational feature is power skiving, and I'm not talking about taking time off work, Richard. What is it?
Yeah, some of us have to work for a living, Jay, that's right. So power skiving, it is a very high-speed gear manufacturing process. With the power skiving process, we can do internal gears or external gears in a very efficient and fast way.
So how does it work?
Basically, you need to have good synchronisation. That is the key fact. You need to have good synchronisation between
Synchronisation of?
Your milling spindle and your turning spindle.
So is that the B-axis and C-axis?
That's the C-axis and the milling spindle, yeah.
Now, in regards to power skiving, why has this, in your opinion, taken over from processes such as hobbing, and why would you look to do it on an Akuma Multus U4000, for example, rather than a dedicated gear cutting machine?
Okay, so to answer your first part of the question, really, is over the hobbing, if it's faster, that's one of the key facts of it, but also we can do internal gear cutting. So we traditionally used to have to do shaping, which is very long-winded, very slow, whereas now we can do the power skiving internal and external, and it's faster than hobbing. Going back to things like the machine itself, one of the key things is as I said before, is this synchronisation. Because Akuma have got their own encoders, this encoder is a very, very high resolution, 36 million increments on our encoder resolution. That is a key fact. We need to get that synchronisation between the two spindles down to the best we can get it.
Is that due to accuracy?
Accuracy, yes. If we're thinking about aerospace bots, not just your normal run-of-the-mill mechanical gears, we're talking about aerospace components, automotive drive gears, all these sort of gears, really.
So is this the evolution of gear cutting, in your opinion?
Definitely, yes. Moving forwards, looking against dedicated gear cut machines, we want to try and go down the method of using multitasking machines so we can produce the complete part, including the turning, the milling, and also look at doing hardening when we've got the laser function, and grinding as well.
So now we've got Kevin here. Thank you for letting us use your backdrop for our Swarf and Chips.
It's our pleasure. Welcome.
Yeah. We'll be talking to Kevin in just a few moments, but just to continue on from the power skiving video, and also I need to make note, everybody in the space of time when that video was played has disappeared off for lunch.
Actually, ironic or coincidental, skiving.
Oh, don't say that.
We allow them to eat occasionally.
Well, we don't at MTV.
Right, okay, just quickly, power skiving, really, really interesting. I'm fascinated by this technique of machining.
Me too. I'd like to ask you a question. What's the drawback to it? There's so many good things, and we talk about how fast and how accurate you can make the gears, but there must be some compromise, or isn't there?
I don't believe there is, because you can do external and internal gears using power skiving. In previous processes, you were unable to do this, but the main reason that this is now achievable on an Akuma machine is because it's their own encoder with 36 million increments. So I'd guess that that's a million increments per degree to be able to achieve the accuracy that you need for the gears, for the critical gears for the aerospace industry. As an example, I think it's.
So is there going to be no need for shapers and broachers and things like that going forward?
If you don't have a mill-turn machine, then there will be a need for it. But I think this is trying to eliminate different machines and doing it all in one, so you can turn, mill, gear, do gears, and they've even got grinding capability on the Akumas as well, so you can even grind forms. So I think that it's a very specific.
So you can get the right forms, you can get good form and good shape, a bit like you.
I don't know about that.
I'm not sure about the shape, but I think that the markets that this has opened up for mill-turn suppliers, and I know Akuma talk about how good their software is, but there's a massive market out there for gear cutting, and if this machine can accommodate that as well, then wow, you've got milling, turning, grinding, and gear cutting.
I mean, we just touched on the Muratech previously, and this is the same kind of scenario, doing it all in one operation. You imagine having that full control and the amount of time that it saves you. If you had to turn something and then put it onto the machine, then you've got to clock it up to make sure it's running perfectly true. This is all done in one operation, and the gears are accurate enough for the aerospace industry.
Look, if you have any experience with gear hobbing or power skiving or anything, let us know right in the comments box below any of your pros, your cons, and what your beliefs are as well. Anyway, right, Kevin, thank you for letting us use your backdrop. You've had lots of changes within the business over the last 9 months. Can you maybe keep us up to date?
Really gradual expansion of the business, slowly as we go forward. But we are expanding the business. The growth of our electronics and automation department has been very pleasing to see, and we're moving forward with that, integrating alongside our fixturing and the manual handling and solutions that we've been providing from the business.
3D printing, Kevin, this is quite new to you. You've just bought the
we bought
Strategist from the car.
2 machines at the beginning of the year, which is complementing the business tremendously.
What's your aim with those? Where are you going with that?
Initially we looked at twofold, but there's a number of components within the fixtures that we design which we can make more easily on these machines. We're actually designing products or components for the fixtures towards manufacturing them on those machines, so that gives us a level of flexibility. But also there's areas within our business whereby we won't have the advantage of having components available to us to actually try on the fixtures, or even on concept stage to be able to talk around a solution. We can actually print off the components from models the customer delivers to us.
There was one case study. I went to a company, BCW Manufacturing in Bolton, I believe they are, and they have purchased a 3D printer, in fact an HP 3D printer, and they've done that in order to make their own fixtures and do similar to what you're saying. So this is something now that's actually not just talked about, it's happening in real time, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a number of people out there that we've seen, particularly in the aerospace markets, who are making their own fixtures. So what could be viewed as a potential threat to our business, we decided that we'd get on board and use it to our advantage.
Brilliant.
Totally, yeah.
Totally.
Get that.
Yeah, I think that the 3D printing as well, that something I learnt is the actual materials that you can print. Some of the materials are heat resistant, and that comes into its own really when you're doing some of these critical work holding components.
Absolutely right, Gio. We first looked at 3D printing and bringing a machine into our business perhaps 3 years ago, and really with how quickly the technology was moving and really the lack of materials available to us at the stage, we held off, and I think we made the right decision. Now we've bought a machine in now which has got massive range of materials available that we can print in, which is really changing our business.
What sort of work in progress have you got going through here though, Kevin? I mean, I know the machine shop's next door, you've got some pretty pretty good machines there, precision machines, big machines as well. But there's a lot of work going through here.
Yeah, there's a lot more to go through as well, Paul, to be honest, so we're very pleased about that. But yeah, the environment's good out there at the moment. We had a quiet start to the year, but things have picked up fairly substantially, particularly through April. But yeah, the order book's good. We've still got a level of flexibility and capacity to offer people. So yeah, we're sitting in quite a nice position, touch wood.
A lot of skills
yeah.
in the business.
Skills is the main problem. It's why we started the apprentice school, as we call it.
Do you do the long waits here as well? Do you do the stripy paint here?
Oh yeah, they have to go through that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but no, it's moving well. The young people we're bringing into the business are moving. All the apprentices who started last year are now moved into the main machine shop down the road. We've got one of the apprentices working in the assembly area. And we're looking now at the next intake for the end of August, September. So working with people like the MTC to bring in quality young people who have got a hunger to learn the trade of fixturing.
We spoke to an aerospace company recently that they were putting a big emphasis on apprentices, and they were using social media to kind of promote themselves to attract the very best young talent. Do you find that with your activity with MTD and the network, is this kind of helping you promote your
massively.
company?
The louder we can spread the word that we can offer opportunities to young people, and the world's changing for us. Brown & Holmes now can offer what we feel is an interesting and exciting future in engineering. And Brown & Holmes is not just supplying to the UK. Our engineers are going all over the world at this moment in time, installing and supporting our fixtures. So it's quite a nice sell these days to young people.
Yeah. Well, if you want to know more, then please do contact Kevin at Brown & Holmes. Thank you so much for watching this week's Swarf and Chips, and it's so exciting to be on a different set as well.
Yeah, and if you've got a location that you're interested in having the Swarf and Chips team, because it's not just us, it's all the ones behind the camera as well that have to come with us, then we'd be interested to hear from you. Perfect backdrop, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you for today.
Thank you. And also, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And as we always say, keep those spindles turning.